Welcome back to the Pearls and Perils podcast. I'm your host, Peta-Kay. I hope you've had a good start to the week so far, and I hope you had a good weekend. If you're based in the UK, on a Monday, what do we talk about? We always talk about, what did you get up to over the weekend? So I'm not going to ask you what you got up to over the weekend, but I will let you know a little bit of what I did over the weekend. So on Saturday, I went to a networking event by a community called Women of Wealth, and it was such a great event. It was such a nice environment. I was actually one of the speakers there as well, which was really an honor. And I had such a great time, met some amazing ladies that are doing really good things in their industries. And it's just so nice being surrounded by women. Like, I've always been a girl's girl. Like, I've always had female friends. Actually, maybe I've not always been. Okay. I've always had female friends. I wouldn't say I've always been a healthy girl's girl, but it's so nice being in a room where people are being open and authentic. And I'd say that this event is really, for me anyway, was like the heart of what this podcast is about. It's about having an organic, authentic space where we can have real conversations. Because I think sometimes we all kind of have this tendency where we want to put our best self forward. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes in doing so, we can do so in a inauthentic way. We can be kind of fake about certain things. So maybe you're struggling, but you've got this facade of, I'm doing fine, I'm okay. And I've been there. And so today's episode, we are talking about love, which is one of my favorite topics. I love love. I'm a lover girl at heart. I may not be someone that outwardly you'd think, yeah, she's a lover girl, because I don't always show that side of me. But those that know, they know. My husband, he knows I'm a lover girl. And I thought it would be really good to speak about this topic. I think depending where you're at, whether you're single, in a relationship, in a situationship, or maybe you've hit a point in your relationship where you're not even sure if you should be together anymore, this episode is going to pretty much encompass a lot of those things. And the reason why I titled this episode Pursuing the Love You Deserve versus, let's say, Pursuing the Love You Desire, I'm going to get into a little bit of the reasons of that shortly. So, one thing is for sure, love and companionship is something most of us desire. But something I've noticed is that a lot of people, they don't like to openly admit that they desire to have a relationship. Speaking on people that are single, there are people that it's kind of like they find it embarrassing to admit that they are openly looking or they would like to be in a relationship. And I think if that's your case, if you are single and you want to be in a relationship, don't be embarrassed about that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being single and actually wanting to have a partner. There's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't feel embarrassed or ashamed of that. It doesn't mean you're insecure or that you don't enjoy being single. I think in everything, there's a gauge and there's a healthy balance, and only you will really know whether your desire for companionship is really a healthy one or not. I mean, if you've just come out of a relationship, let's say just under a month ago, and you're looking for a new one, then you might say you might want to put a bit of a pause in your search and just actually have some time with yourself. But I think if you're at a stage in your life where you're working on yourself and you are ready to love someone and be loved by someone, there is nothing wrong with admitting that. It is okay. Because that's one thing I've noticed. Like, there's some people, they don't want to admit like that they want to be in a relationship, and I really don't understand why. So I just wanted to start off by saying that caveat. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay. And also for those that are in a relationship, I think sometimes when people get into a relationship, it kind of shifts their perspective in the sense that they forget what it was like to be single. And I'd say if you are now in a relationship and you've got maybe a lot of single friends, or you have maybe a few friends that are still single, don't isolate yourself from those people or kind of approach things with the mentality of, oh, I need to have friends that are in relationships, or I need to have friends that are married. I think when it comes to friendships, it's so important to have a different range of people, because having, let's say, married friends, single friends, even divorced friends, it really allows you to kind of have a different perspective on different things. And I think a lot of the time we can see life through a very specific lens. We see things through black and white. And one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is that life isn't always so black and white. As much as we like to believe it is, a lot of the times there are some gray areas. There are some things that we aren't 100% sure or clear on whether they're right or whether they're wrong. The point I'm trying to make is it's important to have a variety of friends if you can. If you're fortunate and you're in the position where you have different kinds of friends, that is a good thing. Be grateful for that, because there's actually an epidemic of people that are lonely, that don't even have close relationships, that perhaps the only people they really interact with are colleagues or people that they live near, but they don't really have deep connections with people. And that's also something a lot of people are facing. So maybe you do have a relationship, you're not single, but perhaps your desire for companionship isn't necessarily a romantic one. Maybe it's a platonic kind of desire. You want to have more female friends or male friends. That is okay to admit. I think being an adult is so awkward in the sense that it sometimes feels childish, or I don't know what the word is, but yeah, it can sometimes feel kind of childish to admit that you desire certain things, which sounds so silly. Because when you're a child, it's so much easier to make friends. You can openly say to someone in the playground or in school, I want to be friends with you, or will you be my friend? Or you even ask them, will you be my best friend? And these things are socially acceptable. But once you are an adult, it's not as easy for us to openly admit or be like, oh, you know what? Do you want to be friends? Like, it's not really conversations we openly have. We naturally kind of gravitate towards people and build those relationships. It's not always a direct conversation that we have. And I think if you found yourself in a place where you don't really have close relationships and you desire to have that, it is okay. I'm not saying you're going to go up to people and be like, yeah, be my friend. But I think being intentional about developing friendships with people that you do have similar interests with, or people that you do think you'll connect with, like, don't be embarrassed to do that. There is no shame in putting yourself out there. And it can be quite a vulnerable place to put yourself in when you do desire to have new friends and build on your connections, because at the end of the day, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You might think someone is an amazing person, and the moment you get to know them, you realize they're not the person who you thought they were. But I guess it's one of those risks you have to be willing to take. But moving on from the platonic side of things, I want to get back to love, romantic love. And the reason why I wanted to focus this episode on pursuing the love that you deserve versus the love that you desire is because a lot of the times our desires are based on the things that either we see, the things that we lust for, or even the things that we are affiliated with in some way, shape, or form. So it may be things that we saw growing up, it may be our direct family relationships or our friendships. And that's the kind of love that we see, and maybe that's the kind of love that we desire, or even the type of media that you consume, or the type of information that you consume. So maybe you're someone that you love reading romantic novels, and as a result, that kind of forms a kind of desire that you have for love and your expectations and the things that you want to be a reality for you. Or perhaps you listen to a lot of relationship content, and as a result, that's also had an effect on the kind of love that you desire. There's so many different things that can impact on the things that we desire. And quite often it's the things that we consume, whether it's the things that we listen to or the things that we actually see. And maybe there's a kind of love that you are desiring for yourself, and that love isn't healthy. I think sometimes toxic love can seem so exciting. It seems like this roller coaster. You're going on this roller coaster of emotions, and everything just seems so heightened and exciting. And even if you think about romance novels or even movies that we watch and the kinds of standards and narratives that we're often socialized into, sometimes those things are actually unhealthy love, or everything just seems so dramatized when in fact, in reality, most things can be quite boring. Real healthy love, sometimes it can feel or seem mundane, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think where we're so used to reality TV, or even if we've grown up in situations where we've been surrounded by bad examples of what love looks like, because we're so used to seeing that, when we see or experience something different, it seems like something's wrong, there's a disconnect. And so that is why I wanted to focus this episode on pursuing the love that you deserve. Firstly, the love that you deserve is a healthy love. And I'm just going to share things off the top of my head. I have got lists for this. I'm trying to kind of like wing it a little bit, not wing it, but I want this to be like a natural conversation. So, the love that you deserve, I would say, is firstly a healthy love. You deserve to be loved by someone who loves you. You deserve to be loved with the same level of love that you have for that person. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not what you have. You deserve to be loved, flaws and all. And this is the standard of healthy love that I would say we all deserve. Now, there may be other intricacies of what that looks like, that might be different, and that is okay. You may desire certain things that might not necessarily be something I desire, and that is perfectly fine. I think for each person, there is someone that is compatible with them. It might not just be one person. I don't necessarily think we all have just this one soulmate, as romantic as that sounds. I think realistically, I think statistically, I wouldn't say that's necessarily what I believe, but I would say that we all have a number of people that we can potentially be compatible with, and it's really just a matter of us actually meeting those people, having a connection, giving it a chance, because love is a risk. Love, allowing yourself to enter into a relationship with someone, giving someone the ability to really see you for who you are, that is an act of faith. And that's an act of stepping out. And that is hard. There are people that are in relationships and have been for many years, and the person that they're with hasn't truly seen who they really are. And that's like, that may sound crazy. I mean, people could be together for 5, 10, 20 plus years and still not truly know that person at their essence. And that sounds crazy. But the reality is, perhaps that person hasn't been willing to really put their walls down. That person hasn't really felt comfortable enough or even allowed themselves to be vulnerable with their partner. And this is the reality. You can be in a relationship with someone, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that person feels completely safe and comfortable, or they even have the tools or the emotional capacity to be able to do that. That takes work. It really does. And I think not enough people are willing to do that emotional work on themselves. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to therapy or you have to have a professional therapy to know that. I think we can all kind of gauge or have an understanding of our own emotional regulation or even our tendencies. We all kind of know our tendencies to some degree. Sometimes we use that as an excuse for how we behave, and sometimes we kind of accept, like, that's just who I am. And I think certain things, especially when it comes to your emotional intelligence, how you deal with your emotions, how you deal with communicating in relationships, these are all things that can be worked on. They aren't innate traits that can't be worked on. It's just who you are. It's not a part of your DNA. It is something that you can consciously work on changing. But as I said, sometimes we're just not willing to do the work. And I think if you are in a committed relationship or you desire to be in one, you've got to be willing to work on yourself. Because if you're not willing to work on yourself, but you're willing to work on the relationship, you are doing yourself and the person you're with a disservice. Because you're going to be working on the relationship, but you're not actually working on yourself. And at the end of the day, there's only so far that those changes, which probably are going to be temporary, are going to take you. And so this is why I wanted to start by saying, what is the love that you deserve? And I think sometimes we base the love that we think we deserve on how we feel about ourselves. Quite often, if someone lacks confidence in themselves, they have low self-esteem, or maybe they've been through traumatic experiences as far as relationships, or even witnessing traumatic relationships or events in their family or people close to them. A lot of the times, these experiences, whether they're your own or not, they can impact on the kind of love that you think that you deserve. And I think no matter what you've been through, no matter how traumatic your experiences with love has been, you deserve healthy love. And I'm going to repeat that one more time. You deserve healthy love. It doesn't matter what you've been through, what you've experienced, who you were previously, you deserve love. And I think sometimes if you have had a bit of a jaded past, it can feel like, I don't deserve love because of what I've done in the past, or who I've been with, or the number of people I've been with, or the mistakes that I've made. There is a redeeming type of love where somebody will see you for who you are, who you were, what you've been through, and will still love you in spite of that. And it's almost like a God type love, like the way that God loves us. It's in spite of our flaws, our mistakes, our nature, our sinfulness, our, misbehaving. Like, he loves us regardless. And I think when you can find a love in the human form of someone that will love you in spite of your mistakes, your flaws, your shortcomings, and will still decide and choose to love you, that is such a beautiful thing. And you deserve to have that. You might feel like you don't, but you do. And you don't deserve it because you're perfect, because no one is perfect. We've all made mistakes, but sometimes our mistakes look different. Sometimes our mistakes, if we weigh them up in through our human perspective, some people's mistakes are bigger than others. But I really want to emphasize that because I've seen time and time again. I'll speak specifically to women because I'm a woman, and a lot of the times women gravitate towards me, and somehow we end up talking about love and relationships. It always seems to come up, especially when people see that I'm married. Somehow we start talking about relationships, right? But something I see a lot is a lot of women who are settling for a kind of love that they feel they deserve, but it's not a love that they want. I think if you are a woman that desires to be in a monogamous, committed relationship, but you are settling for a relationship that is not that, that isn't the love that you deserve. And it's not even the love you desire. I think more and more people, not just women, also men too, need to be real with themselves. Because I think before you can be real with anyone, you need to be real with yourself. I think a lot more people need to really be honest with themselves about the love that they desire for themselves, one, and also about the love that they feel they deserve. And if you feel that you deserve a specific kind of love, you've also got to pursue that. Because what happens is people end up settling because it's easier to settle. It's easier to settle than it is to wait, than it is to be intentional about seeking out a love that looks a certain way or is presented a certain way. It's easier to settle for the first person that comes along than it is to wait maybe an extra 3 to 6 months or even a year to meet someone who truly aligns with you, who you are compatible with. It's easier to settle in that moment just for the sake of being in a relationship, or because you're feeling lonely, or because you feel like maybe your biological clock is ticking, or you're having external pressure from family or other people, or you're looking at the goals that you set for yourself and your current timeline and they're just not aligning. So it's so much easier to settle for the here and now than it is to be patient and to wait for something that truly and truly you don't know if it's going to happen. And as I said previously, this is why I say when it comes to love, it really is an act of faith. It's an act of faith to one, make a commitment to someone, to get married. It's an act of faith. You don't know what the future holds. You don't know what you're going to go through. It's for better or worse. And you don't know what that worse is going to look like. And it's not easy to do that. It's very, very difficult. And even, let's speak about women. There are a lot of women who say that they want a good man. But when one comes along, they aren't interested. And this is why I say it's important for us to be real with ourselves about what we truly desire and whether that desire is actually healthy for us or not. Now, I'm not saying just because someone's a good man that you should just settle for them. But what I am talking about is if you meet someone who you are actually compatible with and there is a level of attraction, you can wake up to that person and not be petrified in the morning. Give them a chance. I think sometimes people don't even give someone a chance just by the outward appearance. Maybe he ticks all your essential boxes, but his fashion is not up to scratch, or he doesn't drive a nice car, or it's just like superficial things that the person doesn't yet have or she doesn't have. I think if somebody at the core, they have the characteristics that you're looking for, that complement you, that are compatible with you, they want similar things in life, your desires align, give the person a chance. This is the problem. It's so easy sometimes. We literally just judge that person by the initial perception of them, by the way that they look, and you don't give them a chance. And a lot of the times, not everybody, it's love at first sight or attraction at first sight, because it's definitely not love at first sight. There is no way you can tell me you can meet someone today and truly love that person. That is not love, that is infatuation. That's not love, that's lust, okay? There's definitely lust at first sight, but there is definitely not love, because love is beyond an emotion and a feeling. Love, there are some times in your relationship where love is going to be a choice. And that is definitely not something you can have at first sight. And so, going back to my point, there are people that say that they're desiring a good man or a good woman, but when one comes along, you don't even give the person a chance. If someone has your core characteristics that you're looking for, at least give them a chance. Give them a chance to get to know them. You may be surprised, because sometimes on initial getting to know someone, there is no attraction there. But a lot of the times, for most people, when you actually get to know the person, it's like that classic example of where you have a male friend or a female friend and you're just friends. And for a long time, you don't even see each other outside of being friends. But then one day something shifts and you start seeing the person through different eyes, you start catching feelings. And this, a lot of the time, is how love develops, right? You start to get to know the core of that person, and then, feelings start developing. So feelings don't always come on first sight. It's not always an initial reaction, but sometimes once you get to know that person, you start building a connection with them, whether it's going to be a friendship connection or not. That often is then when the feelings start to develop. So that's one advice I'd give if you are single and you're finding like, oh, I'm finding good people, but they're not really my people. Give them a chance. Now, I'm not saying give them a chance if there's literally no compatibility whatsoever. If there is a level of compatibility on paper, give them a chance. And I'm not saying just go on a date with them. That is not giving someone a chance, because you can go on a date with someone but already have a set preconceived idea in your head that's going to be the worst night of your life. You just need to get through the next hour and a half or 2 hours or however long the date is. Go into it with an open mind. Of course, you're not going to force anything. Let it be natural, but give the person a true chance to get to know them and see where it goes from there. Maybe it will go no further than that first date. Maybe it will go no further than just being friends, but at least you can say that you tried. And I think that's important as well. So these were just a couple of points that I really wanted to highlight. And I think going back a little bit to pursuing the love that you deserve, it's important to really assess. I want you to kind of ask yourself this question, whether you're single, dating, in a relationship, or otherwise, it doesn't matter. But I want you to think about that. What is the love that you think that you deserve? Write that down. Get that notes app up or come back to this part of the episode later on. But I want you to write that down for yourself. You don't need to share it with anyone. You can if you want to. But I want you to write that down. What is the love that you think that you deserve? And I think you writing that down and having it on paper or having it in a notes app for yourself, it's going to be really telling. And if you really struggle to even think about it, that in itself is going to show you a lot about areas that you need to work on, or even things that maybe you haven't yet healed from that maybe you thought that you did. But I want you to write that down. That is my action for you today. Write down what is the love that you think that you deserve. And then if you want to go a step further and be a really A-star student, then I would suggest writing down the love that you desire. And then I want you to compare them. Is the love that you desire the same as the love that you think that you deserve? Also, is the love that you desire a healthy form of love? I want you to think about that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, but before I go, I do have a poll if you're listening on Spotify, and I want to know from you, do you want to hear more episodes like this? Do you want to hear more free-flowing episodes where we're talking about love or maybe another topic? If you've enjoyed today's episode and you are listening on Spotify, please do engage with the poll. It's just a few clicks, so just come out of the interface and just click on the poll, yes or no. I want to know from you. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And if you haven't already, please leave a rating or review for the podcast. It makes such a huge difference for other people to get recommendations. It helps with impressions and all that good stuff. Well, have a great rest of your week, and I'll be back with you in the next episode.